talking about circle graphs, or some of you know them as pie charts. A pie chart represents different percentages in a set of data. So what do all of the percentage, what's the total percentage represented on a pie chart or a circle graph? Huh? Okay. What is the total percentage represented on a circle graph? 100. All of the parts will add up to 100%. Now, if you skateboard or do snowboarding or something, is a full circle? How many degrees is that? 360. So, important parts on the notes. You need to always remember that all percentages add up to 100 and all degrees add up to 360. Now, what we're going to do on the notes today is figure out, if you're given a set of data, how do you figure out the percentages represented and how many degrees is it on a circle graph, okay? At the bottom, we're given an example. It says, Ms. Darrow surveyed 50 people asking them what their favorite type of movie snack is. So, here are your different snacks, and this is the number of people that chose those snacks. How many, or what should this total to?
50.
It's 50, but does it?
No.
What does it add up to? 60. So this is a good learning example, because clearly somebody that made this worksheet made a mistake, but this shows the importance of always adding up your data and making sure that this in fact is 50. But if it's not, then you need to use the correct number, because if we found the percentages for each of those using 50 as the total, then you would have gotten the incorrect answer, okay? So always make sure to double check and add the actual totals. Now, to set up your proportion, you're still always going to use part over whole equals percent over 100. So what is our whole? 60. So for the first one, if I set up a proportion, 30 is my part, 60 is my total, equals x over 100, because we're trying to find the percent. What can you always do with a proportion to solve for x? Cross multiply and divide. So if I'm going to show you different tricks and tips to use, maybe some shortcuts that you can use on this stuff, but if you don't understand them, then you can always cross multiply and divide. Okay? So what is 30 over 60 simplify to? A half. So what percentage is that going to be? 50. So we know this is 50%. Now, what is the relationship here between 30 and 15? 15 is half of 30. So what does that tell you this percentage is going to be half of? 50s, right? So what's half of 50? And if I were to set up a proportion, I would have 15 over 60 equals x over 100. And 15 is how much of 60? A fourth. And a fourth is also equivalent to 25%. Okay? Now for 10 over 60, we're going to have to cross multiply and divide, because there is a trick. If I go from 30 to 10, I can divide by 3, right? But 50 does not divide easily by 3. So it's not like a quick, easy half it, or if it is divisible by 3, that would work easily, but 50 is not. So if we cross multiply and divide, we're going to do 100 times 10, and we get 1,000. And then what do we divide 1,000 by? 60. And 60 go into 1. Can it go into 10? Can it go into 100?
Yeah,
Once. We get 60. Subtract, and we get 40. Bring down our 0. And 60 go into 400. How many times? 6. 6 times 60 is?
366.
We subtract and we get 40 again. What are we noticing? It's going to be a repeating 6 there. So this is going to be 16.6 repeating percent. And then for the last one, 5 out of 60 equals x over 100. What do we notice between 10 and 5? Half. So can we just half this percentage? And what are we going to get? 8.3 repeating. how you find the percentage that each part of your circle graph makes. What are all of these going to add up to? 100%. So, could I, for the sour worms, just added up these three and then subtracted it from 100? Yeah, because they're going to add up to 100 regardless. Got it? Okay, let's go to the next page. On these, I'm going to write the percentage that each of these were represented by. And now what we're doing is we're going to have to set up a proportion to figure out how many degrees around that circle is that part or that sector going to take up on your circle graph. Okay, so we have to set up a proportion now, doing the percentage that we just found over 100, and then our total we're finding out of 360. So all of our degrees over here are going to equal 360 degrees. Okay, so our first proportion, we're going to do 50 over 100 equals x over 360. What is half of 360? 180. 180. So our degrees here is 180. Now, I'm going to show you a way that you don't have to do proportions for the rest of these, because our numbers just work. We said that 25 is half of 50, yes? So what is half of 180? 90. So this should be 90 degrees. And then we said to get from 30 to 10, you had to divide by 3. Can I easily divide 180 by 3? By what? And what do I get? 60 degrees. And then we said this to this is divided by 2. So can I do 60 divided by 2 here? And I get what? And do all of those add up to 360 degrees?
Yes.
Yes. So again, if I couldn't see a relationship here, you can always do a proportion. But if you see a pattern that works between these original numbers, then it'll also work for the degrees. Okay, once you get one, you can work from those. Does that make sense? Okay, now at the bottom, it says construct a circle graph. Label each sector with 2 different labels, the percent and the degrees. So, popcorn represents 50% of my circle. What can I do to this line that's already here to represent 50%? Okay, so just continue it on to the end. So this will be our popcorn. And it was 50% and 180 degrees. In 180 degrees, if I were to put a protractor here across this line, this whole measurement here would be 180. Okay? And then candy bar is 25%. With what we have left, what does this other half represent? 50%. How can I get 25% of that? Right, divide it down the middle. So we'll get 25 here, which will represent our candy bars. And I'm going to put 25%, and that was 90 degrees. And then for 60 and 30 degrees, which is our trail mix and our sour worms, I'm just going to estimate that this is about 30 and this is about 60. Okay? You're not going to have a protractor, so if you just guesstimate and do your best. Now, if you told me, like, this was 60%, I would be like, oh no. Or if this was 60 degrees, I'd be like, oh no, that's a bad guesstimate. It has to be realistic, okay? So here's our trail mix, which I'm just going to put TM. This was 16.6%, and it was 60 degrees. And then sour worms, which was 8.3%, and 30 degrees. How do we feel? Pretty good? Okay. For your homework tonight, you're doing pages 21 through 24, which you have the rest of the period to work on. And you also need to study for your quiz that's tomorrow.